Well, hello there, everybody. How are you doing? Little Argent. Man, I'll tell you, Rod Argent, if y'all didn't know his talent, well, you missing something. But anyway, how y'all doing? It is Thursday. Good to see everyone. Thank you for tuning in, Soul Tribe. So good to see everybody as he continues to go about hitting this, hitting that, and we're set. Far out. So it's a beautiful day. Hit the ground running and have not stopped since then. So, yeah, usually I have a little bit of time that I, meditate, and sometimes it just doesn't work that way. So you learn to meditate in the midst of what you have to deal with, which you can do. It's not that difficult. Some used to call it daydreaming, and those of you, and if you know what I'm about to say relates to you, you can relate to it. You know how you got corrected, in school? I remember teachers, maybe it was like fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, because I was a daydreamer believer. And they just didn't know we were in another place. Yeah, we were there. Our minds were there, but our spiritual body, we were somewhere else. So good to see everybody. Thank you, moderators, and thank you, Soul Tribe. Speaking favor over us all. Hey, favor means to be empowered to prosper. Prosper means in any area that you have lack. Well, you've been just given the power, baby. We got the power to change it. So you have been empowered to prosper. Health, wealth, spiritually, if you got the spiritual side and you're prospering on there, the physical cannot help but not prosper as well. So there you go. Bosto, be of service to others, and happy birthday if you got one. And nothing missing, nothing broken. I love that. We are always the head, never the tail. We always come out on top. Those, even the weapons that were formed against us in private, they always fail. You just have to remember that study is the course, and you'll be fine. So what else is happening? How's everyone in the chat room? David Barry had his premiere. Y'all need to check it out. If you didn't get it, then make sure you got it. Check it out. Big Al, how you doing? I think you told me you have 5 spaces left in the card deck. If you're not on the card deck, if you've gotten on board in the bus, after a couple of stops, well, then make sure you're on the card deck, because power in the cards, baby. That's all I got to tell you. There's power in it. How many of you play poker? Poker's an interesting game. It truly is. If you look at it from an occult perspective, a lot of dynamics going on, a lot of egregores. Oh, yeah. By the way, I want to say thank you as well. Give me 1 second as he looks for that. Oh, yeah. I know where it was. The author, Mark, actually came in, and thank you, sir. Love to have you on. We're going to continue to delve into your work, and it's like so relating. But back to poker. I mean, the dynamics in poker are interesting. And as an occult philosopher, as I basically like to be in that camp, it's a good camp. You got to be in some camp. I mean, so why not? Hey, Shannon, what's up, girl? Shannon, she got grabbed the Joker in the new deck. All right, way to go. That's one of those power cards. Hey, what's up, everybody? Lost in Space, Nina the Mystic, how you doing? Divine Empress, David Castle, which will be joining me with the men's group next Wednesday. Make sure to check out. And then I have Courtney coming on the day after that. So next week's going to be a really phenomenal week. It's going to be a victory week. I mean, this is going to be a week. If you don't name your days when you wake up, then something else will. So, we'll start naming. I think next week is going to be an absolutely phenomenal, prosperous week. So Yeah, Divine Empress. How y'all doing? How you doing, darling? AK Morning Star, Susie Q. Way to go, hon. Good to see you. Loretta, boy, I sent out a lot of your favor invocation. I mean, that's just a grand slam out into the astral planes. Yeah, they're digging it, because when we speak it, like I did yesterday, and then when you speak it, there's a vibration to it. And as we unite ourselves into that vibration by speaking the same words, you know, stuff begin to happen. That's all I got to say. Hey, Shirley, good to see you. Go. Hello, good to see you. Jules, what's up, darling? Good to see you. Rod, hello. AFI, love to you. It's to Susie Q. Absolutely. What else? Judy, good to see you as well. Elda Berry, what's happening, Gilbert? So, and there is Francis. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, it is amazing and powerful. You know, she gave some thought to that, and you know the type of spirit being that she is. It's reflective in the energy of the words that she put down. Yeah. I used to believe that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was. The problem is that who was there to listen to it? I mean, if you're saying that you're the only one, you came out of darkness and you spoke something into existence, but that just has a whole ramification that no one's ever explained. So how does that happen? I mean, there was no one there to listen, or did anyone hear it? How could it react? What did it react upon? Boy, I mean, you could go right down the proverbial hell, forget the rabbit hole. We're digging a freaking mine, you know. What else has happened? Hey, Joyce, good to see you. Julie, hello. Brandy, hello. You're fine. Mary Wins, good to see you, hon. Project Skyfalls, hello. So, you know, as you get more and more, I will be getting into this book, just to let everyone say, you know, we all found out now that the scary Baphomet is not Satan, is not Lucifer, is not the devil. This was Eliphas' vision of how he saw himself in the multiverse, the multidimensional. He saw him, and it's interesting because we now know what the goat represents. We know exactly what, you know, the whole imagery is. So, yeah, and it's not scary at all, but it is so interesting to read this man's mind. This dude, he was into some stuff. I mean, whatever he was connected to, wow. I think some of us connected into some of it, but you have to remember, back then in, you know, the early 1800s, people had a lot of time. They did. And since there wasn't anything really known as entertainment, at least not in the modern genre as we know it, meditation was the norm. And until the radio came out, that's how families many times came together. There was that time when families would either be quietly reading. There's a lot of significance to this. And when you think about it, when the spiritualist movement began, late 1700s, enlightenment became all over the world. And I'll have to say one thing for Mr. Levy. Wow. Dig the dude, dig the dude, dig the dude. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm trying to get in touch with Nathan. I got some of these, and I loved his artwork. As I get more into this, you know, when you really look at that, there is a lot of occultic gnosis in his work. So interesting because, what's representative here? Be curious as everyone in the chat room kind of looks at this. Now, this is Nathan's work, Nathan Frater. You can see, and then his link is broken, and I'll have to get that. I'll put his email up there. I think his email is there. But yeah, and I have he has sent me a number of his works. And this one's got just, again, curious to see what y'all get on that. Yeah, I love it. You got to love it. It's just, we're still going to be getting into Manly P. Hall. This one is a dynamite. Just finished this one. Holy crapola. And just kind of let someone said, well, what are you reading now? Trying to get ahead. I dig that. So I'm really getting into this one. This is Paradise Found. Yeah. I did a video on it. There's a gentleman out there called, his name is Gary Wayne. He's got a book out there called The 6-Day People. Well written. It's from a Christian perspective, but yet kind of a Christian mystic perspective, where we really get into this fundamental question that we should address here. Because there are clues in these sacred books. And it has always remained a mystery to me about these 6-day people. It's very evident that they existed. Where they were sapiens, I'm not sure. I think there could be some debate on that. I don't know. And then what happened to them? The thing that the implication is here is it was said that they were found to be without fault, no sin. Then we get the earth cataclysm that takes place in Genesis 2:1-4, which actually should have been to the ending of Genesis 1. But remember, it's code and how it's presented, allegorical, metaphorical. So the earth has this cataclysm. Some say it was an asteroid hit. Some say it was a comet, much to the folks there in Turkey with the Göbekli Tepe. They knew that this comet was coming. We know that in their pictographs. So what happened to the 6-day people? Question is, so the thing that we debate amongst ourselves, we say we have a soul, a living soul. And that's actually brought out the first time in the distinguishing of, if you read the book of Genesis 2:7-9, because this demiurge, whatever it was, an Elohim, whatever, Yaldabaoth, E.T., I don't know, the Anunnaki, who knows? Maybe it was Enki. I don't know. Maybe it was I could have been all of them. But somehow it says that this demiurge breathed into this creature, this mud creature, and gave it a living soul, implying that I guess there is a soul that isn't a living soul. Then I guess it depends on what your definition of living is. I'm finding that may have been the curse, because this is not the realm of the living. This is the realm of the living dead. We died coming into this realm. We called it birth. You know why it's death? You can't do it again. Once you do it, once you go through the ritual, the blood veil, that's death. And as the body is contracted to, it could not exist if it was ever subjected to that again. The birth, vaginal birth, that's death. And it's illustrated because how many times they have to shock the body for the baby to inhale, because prior to this, it was amphibious. It was able to breathe in fluid. So we die into birth. Anyway, so much for the class review today. Let's get on with the subject at hand. And again, would love to have Mark Dovall come on and tell us about, as I wrote to him, I said in the comments, really to find out where got him into this point. He talks about it, but it's never like hearing it right from the creator who brought it into existence. All right. So I think water is the ether. I think you're right, Judy. I think you're right. You know, the Tibetan monks believe in some cases that we really don't inhabit the bodies until the last trimester is when we really come into these. It's an interesting topic, but back to those 6-day people. What happened to them? So let's get into continuing where we left off. I really like this book. I got to tell you, it's good. All right. So there's 3 questions that are brought up. And as the author Mark brings up here, he says, what the impact of the egregore on the individual is, his destiny and free will. 2, who and what manages the collective physical body of the group by the way of the invisible, and how is the management performed and to what ends? We are all living under the influence. Now, I went back and looking at some of my notes because I come out of Christianity and, was an ordained minister of the gospel. Paul actually kind of brings this out as well in his writings, that there is this hierarchy that exists. You and I are under the influence, whether we want to admit to it or not. And the key here really becomes important because as we gain knowledge on this, we become a threat. Every human being, a true human being, and that becomes a whole nother debate. Well, what is a true human being? Yeah, I agree. But anyway, we'll just take it for granted that we're all agreeing on the aspect that that is a living spirit within them. Has the ability to alter any hierarchy, dominion, principality, egregores, demons, divine ones, angels. It's just that we're asleep. And most people like to be asleep. Because the problem is, you know it, and you know it as well as I do. The freaking thing about it is that as you gain this freaking knowledge, Solomon is quoted as saying, there is a cost for those who seek wisdom, those who pursue knowledge. He basically calls us fools because, as he says, the responsibility is increased as you become more freaking aware of what's going on, about who and what you are in this realm. And that becomes a problem. You're sending out, and we as I said yesterday, it looks like we may have created one. Now, it's one that serves us, but the fact is, it appears that this is what happens. It's what it's always happened about when human beings come together and when they begin to communicate and then to agree on something. And in fact, in the New Testament, it says, the Christ is quoted, it says, whereas two or more as agree as touching anything, it shall be done for them. Old Testament, it says one can put 1,000, two can put 10,000 to flight. Well, if you extrapolate that, take out the religiosity of it and say, well, what is that saying? Well, what it's saying is that we're some bad asses. I mean, we are some of the biggest MFs out there. And you can do whatever you want to put in the name behind there. I mean, we are serious, some spiritual badasses. And the problem is that they don't want us to ever think that could become an absolute reality. Because you know what? We would then begin to change the reality. That's a threat. I want to keep on this. It says, and if these questions that we will answer to some degree in the following pages. In addition, we will look at the critical process whereby one can free oneself from the influence of the egregores, as well as the means, get this, of directly destroying them when the need arises. They're living essences. And I know you get into this is why we love the occultic philosophic approach to this. You and I are thought forms. Someone thought of us. Now, the reality of that is that when our biological mother and our biological father came together in that moment, that was a thought. Wow, it gets really deep when you think about that. That's why sex magic is so taboo. I have found, and I will admit this myself, Westerners are really a bunch of ignorant saps where it really comes to sex, and particularly sex magic. So much misinformation, so much ignorance that has pilferated something that has now perverted the polarity of what it was really known for. And the reason why only few know about it is because it's that freaking powerful. I mean, the resultant of two cells coming together and absorbing one another, and then the process in itself on a occult level is mind-blowing. Author goes on to say, he says, we bring this information to your attention so that as a student of the esoteric path, you may make a conscious and informed decision about your participation in various egregores. If your work is more academic than practical, then at least, boy, someone, that, yeah, the old third eye coming. If your work is more academic than practical, then at least you will be aware of the critical role this concept has had and continues to play, not only in the esoteric groups, but in certain political and economic activities, as well as in various forms of entertainment, and how they are easily supported by the mass media. I mean, this is a 24/7 feeding frenzy, Earth. We put out so much freaking psychic food that, yeah, I mean, it is hogs at the trough. And, you think about whether it's a political figure, a movie star, some cat that sings, name your thing to it. It appears we create. It says, to this end, let us allow the words of the 20th century French alchemist Jean Dubay act as friend and guide. The following excerpt is from one of the lessons of instructions he wrote for the philosopher of nature, an esoteric school in which no collective rituals were held so as to limit the formation of egregores. Wow. This is not New Age anything. This is really ancient age. Mr. Dubois wrote, "We have serious reasons in insisting that each student work on acquiring the greatest possible mental freedom for himself in the physical world. Genuine initiation is a complete liberation. How can your higher self help you liberate yourself if you don't do it for yourself in the realm already accessible to you?" A second significant reason for insisting on this point is the subject of egregores. What is an egregore? It is the psychic and astral entity of a group. All members of a group, a family, a club, a political party, a religion, or even a country, physically included in the egregore of the organizations to which they belong. Companies. I have seen it as an entrepreneur in successful companies, startups. It's how they become successful. It is a difference between those who win and those who lose. It's the energy that these beings, we create them, they come into existence. Therefore, each individual who is involved in a group receives the influence of the egregores. That is the astral counterpart of the group in his psyche. This process is unconscious. The resulting drawbacks are, first, some perturbing psychic influences in the majority of the case, and second, a restriction of inner freedom. It is impossible to free oneself from certain egregores. However, we should free ourselves from all egregores that are not essential. Be cautious. Mental freedom should not transform us into dropouts or misfits. It should simply open the freedom of the inner path while liberating us from the unnecessary obstacles. Yeah. All right. Let's get into chapter 1 on this. This is kind of really begins to bring out where the knowledge came from. This is the Tibetan Buddhism and the reality of the egregore. Although the term egregore is unique to Western esoteric and occult practices, the ideas it embodies are not. In fact, they are widespread. In some form, they are the basis of all spiritual and magical practices across the globe. Among the most powerful of religious egregores in the world today are those of Islam and Buddhism. But Tibetan Buddhism, in particular, has provided us with the most potent glimpse of this ancient practice on an organized and national level, well into the 20th century. Tibetan Buddhism began to appear in popular culture with its mention in the writings of Russian occultist, spirit medium, and author Helena Pravana Bolshevich, and the Theosophical Society that she co-founded in the late 19th century. With the mythologizing of the Tibet as a land of vast spiritual irradiation, home of the ascended masters of the Great White Brotherhood, and the convoluting of the Shambhalaya mythology and prophecies with the ideas of Agratha and Shangri-La in various Western schools. Tibetan lamas were poised for greatness by the time of their arrival in the West after the flight of the Dalai Lama in India in 1959. Only one more thing was needed to ensure the safe passage of Tibetan Buddhism into the fringes and later mainstream Western society, and that came in the person of Alexandra David Neal. She is a remarkable person. I spent the weekend reading her biography. What a remarkable, remarkable human spirit. She brought a gnosis to the West that may have taken who knows how much longer for such a vehicle. Alexandria David Neal, a link between the East and the West. She was a linguist, a French Orientalist, practicing Buddhist, and profound historian of religion. She was born to be a woman of adventure, and she was. Her father was Huguenot Freemason, and her mother was a Scandinavian and Siberian extraction with the roots in Catholicism. Her parents met in Belgium, where her father, Louis David, was a poor school teacher and publisher of a Republican journal while in exile. By the age of 18, Alexandra had traveled modestly at her own expense and was involved in a variety of religious austerities taken from the biographies of saints in books found in the family library. Like many other people of the period, she was drawn to the Theosophical Society, joined a variety of secret societies, and even reached, get this, folks, I've never heard of this, a 30th degree of mixed masonry. Wow. Like her, that is such discipline. That's commitment. Like her father, she leaned toward the anarchistic revolutionary kind of side of things, and why not? Revolution is good. And with it, feminist politics. However, her views were at odds with her blue blood counterparts, preferring an emphasis on the practicality of economic equality over voting rights. In 1889, at the age of 21, she converted to Buddhism and began the formal training of her career as an Orientalist. She would learn English, Sanskrit, and Tibetan prior to leaving for the Orient. Wow. Her journey east, however, would be the result of her winning first prize in a competition that would make her the first singer of the Hanoi Opera House in Indochina in the year of 1895 and 1897, Vietnam. Singing and composition would serve her well professionally and personally until her marriage in 1904 to a French-born engineer, Philippe Neal. By the time of her marriage, Alexandra David Neal had a small fortune at her disposal. In 1911, she undertook her third trip to India, a trip that was planned to last 18 months, but that would extend to 14 years. During her time in Sikkim, David Neal met the 13th Dalai Lama, who was in exile at the time. She received extensive education and training, undertaking retreats, as well as utilizing the advanced methods of Tumo, or the yoga practice of inner fire. She became famous in her own right and was widely received by Buddhist authorities during her travels. In time, she would also receive a great deal of attention from the foreign press as well. Her fame would spread, even if her desire to reform Buddhism did not. Her first book, My Journey to Lhasa, was published in 1927 and was accompanied by speaking engagements and tours which further enlarged her reputation. 2 years later, in 1929, she published her most famous book, Magick and the Mystery in Tibet. Beat Generation writers Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and Alan Watts would be extremely influenced by her teachings. Wow. Woo. Through the writings of David Neal, the idea of the Tulpa, an animated thought form that takes on autonomous existence, entered the vocabulary of Western esotericism and eventually that of the popular culture. Related to the word Tulpa is a more common idea among schools of Tibetan Buddhism, that of the Tulka. Both Tulpa and Tulka are related to the idea of the mind being able to create a thought form, an idea that can gain a certain amount of functional vitality and longevity for a specific purpose. The Tulka and Tulpa, the power of the mind in action. As Alexandria wrote in her book, Magick and the Mystery of Tibet, the power of producing magic formations, the tulkas, or less lasting and materialized tulpas, does not, however, belong exclusively to such mystics, exalted beings. Any human, divine or demonic being may be possessed of it. The only difference comes from the degree of power, and this depends on the strength of the concentration and the quality of the mind itself. Listen to this, folks. Possibly the single greatest contribution in all of David Neal's writings is the idea of the Tulpa's ability to develop a mind of its own. She writes, once the Tulpa is endowed with enough vitality to be capable of playing the part of a real being, it tends to free itself from its maker's control. This, say Tibetan occultists, happens nearly mechanically, just as a child, when his body is completed and able to live apart, leaves its mother's womb. Yet, while David Neal claimed to have created a Tulpa fashioned in the image of a jolly medieval monk, a creation that later developed a life of its own and had to be destroyed. She also raised the possibility that her experience was illusionary. I may have created my own hallucination, she writes, although she also reports that others could see, get this, the visualized monk as well. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but holy crapola. If ETs don't know about this, could you imagine what they're walking into? Maybe that's why they isolated us. I don't know. I've read the book and I'm still reading and getting near the end of it. A lot of it I can absolutely relate to. I was taught this in Christianity, in my indoctrination, and that's why religions exist today. Powerful, powerful stuff. In the secret oral teachings in Tibetan Buddhist sects, David Neal further elaborates on the difference between the terms Tulpa and Tulka. The Tibetans distinguish between Tulkas and Tulpas. Tulpas are more or less ethereal creations which may take different forms: man, animal, tree, rock. They could be in your house. You have a certain affinity for a certain keepsake at will of the magician who created them, and behave like the being whose form they happen to have. These tulpas coexist with their creator and can be seen simultaneously with him. In some cases, they may survive him, or during his life, free themselves from his dominion and attain a certain independence. Mm-hmm. The Tulpa, on the contrary, is the incarnation of a lasting energy directed by an individual with the object of continuing a given kind of activity after his death. I mean, this brings up a whole new thing. I mean, the thought that hit me, so ghost hunting, it's the big thing, because we're now realizing, hey, they really are there. But this brings up a whole lot. What are we really dealing with? I mean, many times we know that these are not seem to be human. They definitely seem to be of a different breed. So could we be dealing with potentially how many billions, how many trillions of these Tulpa? The Tibetan, to boast, author note, he who has succeeded, who has accomplished. This implies who has acquired supernormal powers. The sedition Sanskrit are considered to be experts in the art of creating tulpas. Author's note, the belief in tulpas is universal in Tibet, and there are many stories about them, some of these stories being terribly tragic. Imaginary forms which are sort of robot, which they control as they wish, but which sometimes manages to acquire some kind of autonomous personality. You know what I get the visualization is, you have a ventriloquist with their puppets. The Twilight Zone, Cliff Robertson did a guy that was a ventriloquist and was really down on his luck. How many of you remember seeing that in the Twilight Zone? And lo and behold, the puppet suddenly took on a personality and eventually killed the original personality. And I think that can, in fact, does happen. It gets into this a little bit more. It is also stated that during these periods of deep meditation, the initiates surround themselves with an impassable occult protective zone extending at times right around their hermitage, their home, when they adapt the life of an acronaut. Novices who are training themselves according to the methods of the secret teachings are sometimes advised to exercise themselves in creating mentally around themselves an environment completely different from that which is considered real. For example, a forest, the usefulness is to lead the novice to understand the superficial nature of the sensations and perceptions. The relative world is closed to the imaginary world because, as has been said, error and illusion dominate it. Most of humanity is unconscious of the fact that they live and move in a world of phantasmagoria. Now, this is really interesting. I'm going to put up what this is. We actually, if you follow what phantasmagoria is, we're doing it. We create these entities. We use a medium, which means everyone who watches this video, everyone who watches it as it's live, there's some powerful stuff going on. I think they like this place. Those folks, they feed on some pretty good stuff over there. Now, in her book, Magick and the Mystery in Tibet, David Niels recounts a conversation she had with a lama about the subjectivity of thought forms. When David Neal expressed the notion that those who died during various rites died from fear and the visions were of their own imagination, the lama to whom she expressed these thoughts replied, according to that, it must follow that a man who does not believe in the existence of tigers may feel confident that none of them would even hurt him, even if he were confronted by such a beast. Visualizing mental formation, either voluntary or not, is a most mysterious process. What becomes of these creations? May it not be that, like children born of our flesh, these children of our mind separate their lives from or escape our control and then play parts of their own? Must we not also consider that we are not the only ones capable of creating such formations? And if such entities exist in the world, are we not liable to come in touch with them, either by will of their maker or from some other cause? Could one of these causes not be that through our mind or through our material deeds, we bring about the conditions in which these entities are capable of manifesting some kind of activity? I will give you an illustration. If you are living on a dry spot of ground at some distance from the banks of a river, fishes will never approach you. But cut a channel between the river and your dwelling place and dig a pond in the dry spot of ground. Then, as the water runs in it, fishes will come from the river and you will see them moving before your eyes. It is only prudent to be aware of opening channels without due consideration. Few, indeed, suspect what the great storehouse of the world which they tap unconsciously contains. One must know how to protect oneself against the tigers to which one has given birth, as well as against those who have been begotten by others. 4 types of spiritual practice. In Initiations and Initiates in Tibet, David Neal elaborates on the various types of rituals and I believe I said that right, is it dupthobs? The dupthobs is the Tibetan word for the Sanskrit term sadhana, which translates as practice or sometimes liturgy. However, as David Neal points out, its literal translation is means to success or means to accomplish something. What are those accomplishments? In the practice of Tibetan Vajrayana, they are 4 in number. The following are David Neal's translation of the terms. The words in brackets are in the end have been added and are more common in modern translations. Gentle or Pacific, I believe that is Shawa, for obtaining long life, health, good fortune. Pacifying. Expanding, I think that is how they say, is Ye Aspa, for obtaining wealth and fame, increasing. 4, potent, Wagwa, for obtaining influence and power, magnetizing. 4, terrible, Tangpu, Dragpu, for obtaining the power to cause evil, to kill or destroy in whatever manner by occult methods, wrathful. Wow. How can these results be attained? Some answer they are the work of deities who grant their aid to those who reverence them in a required manner, prayer, worship. Others affirm that the aim of the initiates is not to worship the deities, but rather to bring them into subjugation. They also say that the man who is versed in their ritual is capable, get this, of forcing both gods and demons to place their power at his service and to obey him in everything. Isn't this what Solomon did in the legend of having the temple built, which was always weird? So he's building this temple for Yahweh, Jehovah, a quote unquote holy God. But yet Solomon, he basically enslaves the chief demons. Then they build it. The point to all that was, we know, is that we can control these. Again, in my upbringing and my initiation that lasted, if I look at all the training, about 35 years, long time for initiation. But again, getting back to this, I knew, again, in Hebrews 1:14, that I was a master spirit, that I am supposed to control the angels and the divine ones. I am the divine one. They are second to me, if you follow the jargon. We shall continue. These opinions are current in Tibet. These current being, I think, the 20s and the 30s. But both of them, according to more learned lamas, denote a lack of understanding of the theories on which the initiates are based. In reality, judging by the explanations we find in the works of ancient authors and those given oral by contemporary masters of mysticism, the methods employed consist of projecting, like images on a screen, deities mentally conceived, and in imaging a series of changes through which they pass in the course of a very prolonged and complicated rites. The beings invoked by the initiate are not imaginary creations of any kind. They are always well-known personalities in the world of gods or demons who have been revered or propitiated for centuries by millions of believers. Tibetan occultists say that these beings have acquired a sort of real existence due to the countless thoughts they have been concentrated on them. Wow. The author says the Tibetans insist strongly upon this point. He says, I've given instances of it several times with mystics and magicians in Tibet. So I actually have the book. I ordered it. Similar theories are expressed in the sacred scriptures of India. In the sacred book over there, which is regarded as prior to Buddhism, we find these words: whosoever worships a deity with the thought in his mind, he is another am I, does not know. Like a beast, he is used by the gods. As verily many beasts maintain a man, so every man maintains the gods. How do men do this? By feeding the subjective personalities of their gods on the worship they pay them. And Hindu aesthetic told me, wow, same thing with church on Sunday, right? Enlightened lamas are fully aware of the nature of the characters they invoked, but they assert that by this kind of mystic sport, it is possible to obtain results which could never, or only with great difficulty, have been attained otherwise. What is the explanation of this oddity? In identifying himself with them, the deities, the initiate places himself in communication with an accumulation of energy vastly superior to what he could produce by his own efforts. Contact with this mysterious power may prove beneficial. Nevertheless, if he is lacking in skill, mainly in the terrible category, he may be ill-treated and even killed by the mighty personalities that his mental concentration has attracted. The mystics of Tibet consider that gods and demons, paradise and hell, exist only for those who believe in them. Although existing in a latent state, the God created and the kept alive by the imagination of the masses has power only over man who comes in contact with him. A filament is necessary in order for that the electricity dormant in a storage battery may cause the light to appear in the lamp. This comparison explains with a fair degree of accuracy what is in the minds of the Tibetans. The majority of initiates are not aware of the dual origin of deities. They do not comprehend that the latter are born of mental concentration of the masses of believers and again, temporarily created by the thought of the officiating monk who acts as a magnet, attracting these already existing occult forces or personalities. Those who succeed in comprehending the subjective nature of the deities evoked during the ritual are advised by the masters not to regard these deities as negligible phantoms. The mentally created deities are similar to those supposed to inhabit paradise and other sacred places. In the very words of the Tibetan text, they should be regarded as the two-faced unity which appears as forms and is, in essence, the formless void. The officiating monk should also conceive of the different deities in the diverse parts of his body and understand that they all exist in himself. The better to fix this idea in the minds of those who practice the rituals, most of the later end by causing to reabsorb them within the gods and demons that have been projected by them. Wow. So most of the latter end by causing to reabsorb therein the gods and demons that have been projected. It's some heavy stuff. Wow. The celebration of the simplest initiate requires 3 or 4 hours. The rite must be repeated for several successive days. Prolonged preparation is needed for the celebration of the grand initiate, the rites of accomplishments, the sadhana, with the requisite initiations by the Lama possessed of the necessary powers. One must first also learn by heart whole volumes of liturgical office and have an exact knowledge of the ceremonial, the different meditations dealing with the necessary phases of the rite. Holy crap. Who wants to? Most people are not disciplined enough to do this. The rite must be repeated until the initiate has mastered its esoteric, exoteric, and mystical significations and has, in addition, seen manifested signs that augur success. How much you want to bet that there's a shortcut to this? Always is. The modern example of war of the egregores. This is where we'll pick up next time. It gets good, folks. I mean, again, I appreciate the work here. It is phenomenal work. And it's like everything else. Take from it what you find beneficial, discard the rest. That's what it's about. For myself, I'm like, oh yeah, baby. Yeah. Joyce says, talk about esoteric naked can. I love that. Here's the thing also, folks. We're in the physical density. That's a fact. But no matter how you want to slice it and dice this with a slice of Magick 9000, it still comes out the same. All of these assholes, these spirits, the egregores, the spirits, the gods, they're all freaking voyeurs. And I think that that's kind of weird, you know? It's like, if they're all around all the time, there ain't no such thing as privacy, baby. We already know it in this realm. But yeah, they're all voyeurs. I mean, yeah. I'm just reading this. How to Train Your Dragon. There you go. Brandy, you got it. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Exactly. All right. It's man, that hour. Boom, baby. Time travel. I believe the ladies are coming on tomorrow. I am hoping they are. Courtney, going to see you next week as well, dear. You're never alone. Bonnie, that is absolutely the truth. We're never alone. Yikes. David Barrow said, well, you might as well put on a good show. Yeah, there's a lot I could add to that one, David. Probably maybe we'll pick that up on Wednesday. How's that work? Hey, Blazing River. Yes, fairy tale. Yeah. It makes you really think. Well, Brian, 1958, you're welcome. Appreciate it. Everything is a test. Ain't that the truth? All right, folks. See you tomorrow. Make sure to follow us on Odyssey, Rumble, and Spreaker. Thank you. And Big Al, we love you, man. Sending you only 5 open cards left. So let's fill it up. And we'll get that going. Scotty boy, what's up? Haven't seen you in a while. Robert Scott, how you doing, brother? Good to see you. Yes, Linda, you need the book. You really do. Yeah. And this is our way of sowing prosperity into Mark's life. I mean, buying the books. I have it on PDF. I mean, they're aware of it, but you know, never hurts to spread the prosperity around. Thank you, Mary Wins. Much love. Appreciate that. Mary wins, we all wins. Robert, you're welcome. All right, folks, spread the love. That's just it. Spread the love. Sow a seed when you see a need. You'll never have to worry about that need for the seed ever again. It'll always be coming. That's why we speak favor. And now it's starting to catch on with other people. People are going, you know, it's kind of cool. Yeah, we know it. We know it. Isby, appreciate it. Another good class. I agree with you. It was a good one. All right, folks, much love to you. Speak favor over us. Nothing misses, nothing broke. Even when trials arise, remember, you're going to come out on top no matter what. You'll always be the head. Favor will sustain you. So I leave you with that. All right. Much love, Soul Tribe.